All right, so let's talk about Dragon Ball Daima episode 7. It's called Collar, is the title of the episode. As usual, there will be spoilers in this video, so if you don't want to be spoiled on episode 7 of Daima, I would recommend that you click off right now. Okay, so we'll go through this episode, and then I'll give my thoughts. So we'll just warn you guys ahead of time, this is a very slow-moving episode. There is almost zero progression this episode, and at this point, I would definitely say that is easily the biggest complaint that I'm seeing from basically every community, both the Japanese community and the Western community. The general consensus is that the pacing is pretty slow. There aren't really many developments in the actual plot itself. And I would tend to agree with that actually at this point. And the main reason why I'm saying this is because there's people are making educated guesses. I'm not exactly sure if there's a source for this or not, but people are speculating that the series is probably going to end up being 20 to 25 episodes, somewhere in that range. So if we're talking now episode 7, we are actually just about a third of the way through the series, and I would argue very little has actually happened so far. I mean, they've established the backstory, they've introduced us to the demon realm, we have the different characters from the demon realm. Why are they kids again, and all this different stuff. Like, they've established that, but it's taken a lot of time from the rest of the show to establish that right now. So we're a third of the way in, and we've essentially seen almost no action, right? We had that one fight last week with Goku versus Gloria, which I would call that the first real fight of Daima. Although it does seem like the next week's episode is going to be the first like actual fight with stakes in it. Kind of. We'll talk about that. So this episode called Collar, it starts with them in the spaceship. It's Goku, the usual crew, Goku, Gloria, Supreme Kai, and Ponzi in the spaceship. Oh no, sorry, actually, let me backtrack, actually. It starts off with Kami's Lookout, and that's what this image is here. It's Vegeta, Bulma, Kibito, and all the rest of Piccolo at Kami's Lookout. And so what Bulma says is, apparently there is a special type of mineral that she needs to power the spaceship from the world of the Kais, which is what Kibito brought back from the world of the Kais. And they don't have that on Earth, so they're not going to be able to power that ship. And just as they were talking about that, and Vegeta and Bulma were arguing about that, the Yardrat guy, this guy, his name is, I wrote it down this time because I always forget it. What's his name? Haibisu, this guy. I mean, he does look like a Yardrat from the manga a little bit. Haibisu is his name. So this guy finally arrives. He's like, I was, directed to pick you guys up and bring you back to the demon realm. And so it's actually Vegeta, Piccolo, and Bulma who end up going back with him. Kibito does not go. I believe he just needs to stay back or something with the realm of Kais. He's not supposed to be away or something like that. So yeah, they all go with Haibisu back to the demon realm, and it kind of shows them later in the episode, but there isn't really a huge development with Vegeta and Piccolo and Bulma. It just shows them getting onto the spaceship with this guy, and then later in the episode it shows them actually arriving at the demon realm. And essentially what happens is, from the perspective of Vegeta, Piccolo, and Bulma, they're supposed to meet up with Goku, and this guy's supposed to take them there. So there really is nothing that's gone on with this crew yet in the show. So I guess next week we'll finally see them potentially join up with Goku there. Okay, so next we go back to there's some nice shots here. Goku and Gloria, Supreme Kai, and Ponzi, who are in their ship, and they actually get apprehended by. Actually, let me just make one point here. This, I don't know. This probably not going to matter. They do a lot of this in Daima, where they just talk about like almost meaningless things. But again, it's part of the world building experience of Daima, and I think it also is kind of just all built into this RPG feeling that the show has. There are these. I don't remember what the actual name of them are, but they're like these black balls. And what they're supposed to do is they're supposed to be the equivalent of 2 meals. So you eat this one black ball, and then Goku, actually what happens is Goku eats one, you can see his stomach getting bigger, and then he eats a second one, and then his stomach gets even bigger. And then Ponzi's like, what are you doing? Then I just told you those are supposed to be 2 meals. So Goku eats 2 of them immediately. And then they get apprehended by the royal police, or I guess you can call them Goma's guards. Whatever, the police in those spaceships. So they kind of get surrounded by spaceship. There's one in front of them and one behind them, and they get apprehended. And then what ends up happening is, because Ponzi says when they were stopped a few episodes ago by the royal police, They scanned her collar, which is, again, the name of the episode is Collar. They scanned her collar, and that allows them to actually track her location. And because they were very suspicious of them, they were kind of on their trail, following them a little bit. So they suspect that this spaceship does have Goku in it, because remember, they're looking for Goku because he's the one that took down the royal police at that town in that like big brawl that they had. So they're looking for Goku, and what happens is they land, and then they tell Goku to stay back in the ship while they try and get like figure out their way out of this. And the reason why, because Goku's like, let's just like take care of them all, like let's just knock them all out or something. And then they're like, the reason why that's not a good idea is because then if we become an enemy of the demon realm, we can't use warp anymore. So that is a concern, obviously, because then they can't go traveling in and out of the demon realm. So what happens is they land, and then they're like trying to, say like, oh, we don't know where Goku is, or what are you looking for? And then Goku is staying in the ship. So they all come out of the ship, Goku's staying in the ship. And when the guards go into the ship to look for Goku, Goku just instant transmissions out of the ship. So he just like easily escapes them, and then he runs into the bushes or whatever. And then after they realized they couldn't find Goku, because he instant transmissioned out of the ship, this one guard goes over to Ponzi, and he's like, I suspect that you're the masked person from the town that tried to throw a bomb at us. And obviously she was, but they're trying to get their way out of this. And then at that point, she actually tases the royal guardsman, or the royal police, or whatever, the agent. I don't even know what you want, the officer. And then a brawl ensues. So it's essentially, they were trying not to get into a fight initially, but of course it always leads into a fight. So we actually have Glorio fighting. We have Supreme Kai. Supreme Kai doesn't really fight. Supreme Kai is kind of just using his magic to like push the ships away, essentially, and that's what this shot is over here of him. He pushes two ships into each other, and then the final ship that's trying to escape Goku ends up using a ki blast and just pushing it away. So again, it's not like a big fight or anything. It's just a scuffle. But what ends up happening in this fight is the royal police ship is like shooting down from their ship. It's kind of like, I don't even know the best. It's like a fighter pilot shooting down at the ground. So there's all these bullets coming down, and he actually hits their ship with his gun. So their ship actually gets destroyed in this brawl, which obviously is not a good thing. But since they took out the guards, then they could use their ship. So there's actually a royal police ship that they hijack, and they then start using that to travel from that spot. And then there's this intermission in between the end of the brawl and them hijacking the ship. And of course, it is about Ponzi's collar, which he talked about earlier. Apparently, the denizens of the third demon realm are required to wear this collar for their positions and locations to be able to be tracked by the royal police. And then Supreme Kai says, let me take a look at that collar. So let me just read my notes for this. Supreme Kai takes a look at Ponzi's collar and determines that it's Kachinko, apparently is what he says. And if you guys remember back to Dragon Ball Super, we had like back to Dragon Ball Z. Remember, Kachin is what they used to do the Z sword training with Gohan. And that's actually the material that Gohan broke the Z sword on was Kachin. And then in Dragon Ball Super, we got introduced to Kachi Kachin, which is a stronger version of Kachin. And just so you guys know, Kachi means hard, is what it means. So it literally just means hard, like hardy hard is what it means, essentially. I don't know. So it's literally what it means. So Kachinko is like, I don't know. It all just means hard. It all just means the same thing. But there's Kachi, there's Kachin, Kachin, which is like really hard. And then there's Kachinko, which probably isn't harder than Kachin, because they always said that was like the hardest material in the universe. But Kachinko is apparently a special mineral and special material that only comes from the second demon realm where Supreme Kai is from, where the Gurindo-jin are from. So Supreme Kai theorizes that Dr. Urinsu implemented these collars during Deborah's rule. So we always are coming back to Dr. Urinsu with these like diabolical schemes and evil plans. So they're kind of setting her up. And of course, we saw the discussion with her and Glorio, at least a little bit of discussion with her and Glorio last episode. So they're kind of building her up secretly to be the mastermind behind a lot of what's going on in terms of the evil things. So they talk about that. Let me see here. Yeah, so this is what this part is. This is when they're talking about Dr. Arinsu with the collar here. So what ends up happening is Supreme Kai is able to actually use his magic to shatter the collar. That's what this is over here. He's using his magic. The collar gets shattered. And essentially, Ponzi at this point is now free. She doesn't have to wear the collar anymore. Her location is not being monitored. It's not being tracked. So she gets very happy about that. And she actually asks what Supreme Kai's name is. I thought this was pretty interesting. And then so what Supreme Kai says is he's like, my name is Sheen, which is what we've kind of known him as outside of the demon realm. But then she's like, no, that's your name outside of the demon realm. What is your real name when you were, part of the demon realm? And he's like, oh, it was Nahare was his name. So I don't know if it has any significance, but it's kind of weird that this is a character we've known for 30 years, more than 30 years probably, actually, Supreme Kai. And we didn't even know his name until now, which is kind of interesting, right? We've known his pen name is Sheen. I guess that's what it's a pen name. It's not his real name. But now we know what his real name is, Nahare, from the second demon realm. That's what he's initially known as there. So I thought that was pretty interesting. So after this, they head over to, by the way, I don't know if they're self-aware of what's going on here, but when they start using the Royal Police's ship, I think Glorio even mentions this. He's like, wow, this ship is way faster than ours. So it's like, because what they do is they just go right to the Dragon Ball location. It just instantly snaps over to them flying into the Dragon Ball location. So we've had these different scenes where it's like, oh, now we got to save this village, and now we got to go over here, and now we got to do this, and now we got to find a new ship. And it's like, okay, they hijack the ship and they make it there in like 2 seconds. It just cuts to them there essentially. So I thought that was pretty funny. So they're now at the Tamagami location with the Dragon Ball on it, and the Tamagami is just standing there. He's kind of just like stoic, and he has the Dragon Ball like on his chest area. And then they're talking about it. They're like, okay, let me just see what I wrote here. They arrive at the location of the third Demon World's Dragon Ball and the Tamagami guarding it. And then Ponzi says he's known as Tamagami number 3 is what he's known as. Okay. Ponzi says no one has ever defeated him in a fight. And then there's like this sort of, I don't even know if I want to call it ominous music, but there's music that's obviously meant to be building up to like an epic thing. And then Goku's like, I gotta have something to eat first. So there's like this I don't know, inn outpost right next to the Tamagami location. So they're all going over there. And then the guy serving them is like this older guy. He's like, oh, are you guys thinking about, like, jokingly, he's like, oh, you guys are thinking about challenging the Tamagami, ha 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 ha. And then Goku's like, how do you challenge him? And he's like, oh, you just declare that you're challenging him. And this guy's thinking Goku's just like a kid who has no idea what's going on. It's funny. And then they finish eating and stuff like that, and they get ready to go back over to the Tamagami. And then Ponzi says even Deborah could not defeat as far as she knows, even Deborah could not defeat the Tamagami. So that kind of gives us a frame of reference of how strong these guys are. Now there is a bit of we'll have to see next week, because next week is them getting ready to actually fight the Tamagami. But there is a bit of a reference there. So now that we know that Deborah supposedly could not defeat the Tamagami, we saw Gohan as he was super. There's kind of a debate, I guess, going on between whether or not Gohan was actually Super Saiyan 2 when he was fighting Deborah. I'm pretty sure he was Super Saiyan 2 fighting Deborah, right? So Deborah probably is around as strong as Gohan was then. I think Gohan would have beat him, but we can probably say these Tamagami are probably about as strong as like adult Super Saiyan 2 Gohan from the beginning of the Buu Saga. I guess we can kind of infer that from what he was saying. So essentially what happens is Goku goes up to this Tamagami, literally known as Tamagami number 3. And then Goku's like, and then Tamagami number 3 just goes, I am, like, he's like, what do you want? I am Tamagami number 3. He just starts yelling super loud and just shockwaves out throughout the whole demon realm. He's like, what do you want? It's pretty funny. So he literally refers to himself as Tamagami number 3. So that, I think, is his official name. His official name is not like Tamagami 3. It's literally Tamagami number 3 is his actual name. So the episode essentially ends with them squaring. He's like, are you here to challenge me for my Dragon Ball? Goku says yes. And then they square off. This guy has like a giant hammer. There's probably a picture here. Yeah, this guy right here. So this is how the episode ends. It's them squaring off against each other. Goku with his power pole versus Tamagami number 3 with this giant hammer thing. So that's how the episode ends. Like I said, the entire progression in this episode essentially was Vegeta, Piccolo, and Bulma get picked up by whatever his name was, Haibisu, and get brought to the Demon Realm. So now they're here, but they still got to meet up with Goku. And Goku, Ponzi, Glorio, and Supreme Kai end up going further over to the Dragon Ball, and they've actually arrived at the Tamagami area. That's essentially all that happened in terms of plot in this episode. So not a lot happened this week, but we did see a preview for next week. They actually showed some of these scenes of Goku fighting the Tamagami. And the reason why I even bring this up is because he's fighting in base form. Now, I'm not sure how well he's actually doing against him, but we can at least see that in this image, for example, he's actually like doing some sort of damage to him with the power pole in base form. So, I mean, the claim that Deborah could not beat these guys and Goku's doing this in base form, I assume he's not going to be able to actually win in base form, but, you know, Goku likes to test out the opponent's strength and go through, like he did with Jiren. You guys know he fought Jiren. You started go through all the different forms: base, Super Saiyan 2, God, and then Blue, and then Blue Kaioken, and then UI. So he literally goes through every form. I imagine this is probably going to happen here. I'm not exactly sure if he's going to need to go Super Saiyan 3. We haven't seen him even go Super Saiyan 2 yet. We just saw Super Saiyan 1 briefly in his fight against Glorio. And then also in this, like, for like a brief millisecond in this scuffle with like the guards at the King's Palace. So we haven't seen anything past Super Saiyan 1 yet from Goku. We haven't even seen him fire a Kamehameha yet outside of that like first episode before they even became kids again. So this to me seems like the first real fight, but I'm not sure if I even want to call this a fight that will have stakes to it, because apparently what happens is people challenge the Tamagami, and then right as they're about to get killed, they just forfeit, and that's the end of the fight. So I don't really know if I would consider this to be a fight with stakes if you can just forfeit and not, you know, there's like no downside to challenging him. So we'll see. I imagine what'll probably happen is Goku will fight this guy in base form, and then it'll sort of just get ramped up from there. I'm not sure if Vegeta's going to get involved or Piccolo's going to get involved, but they got to meet up first because they're still not even together here. But that is essentially the gist of episode 7, called Collar, and I guess the collars might actually have some deeper meaning later on, but as far as the episode 7 in isolation goes, it was just kind of a side thing that they talked about for a little bit in this episode, but the main focus, of course, was on the Tamagami. So that is episode 7. I thought it was probably, so far, probably one of the weaker episodes, just because we did have some solid progression last episode. We actually had like a decent sparring match between Goku and Glorio, and this one kind of shifted the tone a little bit lower for me. So hopefully next week seems like it'll be like a real Dragon Ball episode. So we'll see what happens, but let me know your guys' thoughts once you've had the chance to watch episode 7. Hope you guys enjoyed this, and I will see you in the next one.